spent about half of the 2020s hosting a podcast called Delayed Replay, recapping and reviewing movies that came out on time in my universe but got delayed in that other universe. And as such, the movies as they were in my universe came out differently. Some listeners not of this universe even think that this is an improvised comedy podcast. And hey, let them think what they want. It's entertaining either way, right? I'm Steven Shinder, and you're listening to Delayed Replay Season 6. Hashtag 6 seasons about movies. New episode every other Saturday. Unless I say otherwise. Hey everyone, happy Free Comic Book Day. Before the discussion of Armor Wars, I just want to mention that in 2 weeks, May 17th, will be the release of the Delayed Replay 5th Anniversary Special. So, the next episode will focus on the 5th Avengers movie, and I'm sure we'll also touch on some stuff we like about the podcast, maybe some memories, or maybe not, I don't know. But if you want to send in your thoughts on 5 years of Delayed Replay, go ahead and email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Again, the episode comes out May 17th, so you could send in messages about it before then. And I believe we're recording on the night of May 6th, so maybe if you send something in, all three of us will be present to discuss the emails, but if it's after, I'll go ahead and read them. So yeah, without further delay, enjoy the show. Hello listeners, welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and joining me for this episode on Armor Wars, which came out as a movie in this universe a couple months ago. I think in that other universe they were struggling, figuring out if it's going to be a movie or a show, and now I don't know what's happening with over there. But we saw the movie version here, and joining me for this, it's Jesse from Cinemaybes. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going? It's great to be here. I almost forgot about Cinemaybes for a minute, so I was surprised to hear it come up. But yeah, we went and saw this. I happened to take a trip out there, and we saw this movie a few months ago, and it was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And also, yeah, I mentioned it on this podcast before, but that Incredibles episode of Cinemaybes, that was a really wild episode. We went all over the place with different what if scenarios there.
Yeah, we had a moment where we got kind of dark, and it took us a while to dig out of that hole, and then we got really cheerful, and then obviously talking superheroes, we got onto Marvel and stuff like that as well. But yeah, we really covered a wide spectrum there. But yeah, that episode's been out for a little over a month now, I think. I can't remember. It is the last one that we recorded. If you want to hear it, it's on Spotify. Sorry for plugging myself there.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, it's a fun podcast. But yeah, so before we get into this, what's sort of your history with, I guess Marvel, but more specifically Iron Man and Iron Man related characters like War Machine and whatnot?
So growing up, I watched cartoons, but I really didn't watch much Marvel. At least, growing up, these characters weren't as big as they are now. It was the other, it was Fantastic Four and X-Men that were the popular ones. So I really didn't get into Iron Man and the like. I knew of their existence, but it was probably around the dawn of the MCU whenever I started paying attention to those characters more. They would pop up in a few cartoons here and there, but I never paid attention to them. But I knew who they were.
Right. Yeah, and I've talked before, on this podcast, how Marvel Ultimate Alliance was sort of my gateway to the larger Marvel universe after having only watched the Spider-Man movies, and then after that I just wanted to watch everything Marvel related. And yeah, there have been some ups and downs quality wise, but there's still enough for me to like want to see certain things. But the more content comes out, it's like if you want to like marathon these things before a new release comes out, you don't have to watch like everything because like that's a huge time commitment, you know?
Yeah, it's one of those things that makes me think about like fan supercuts whenever fans do those things. And I think the last time I saw like a Marvel supercut like being talked about, it was so big that the file itself couldn't be kept in one piece because it would crash the computer trying to load it. Like it's so long that it was split up into like five separate files or something. And and it was like fan cut into like a chronological order every scene. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I remember back in the like late 2000s, some people on YouTube would try to make these chronological Saw movies supercuts, trying to like recap or summarize certain scenes, but in chronological order. And I thought that was an interesting idea, but it also looked like a lot of time to just watch through those things. So I never really tried watching through them when those were up.
So for Saw, I would love to watch one of those without the gore side of it, and like just like give me the chronological history of John Kramer's life. I don't need the Saw games. That's what the movies are for, like
Yeah.
just on their own. But whenever it comes to like wanting to know the story and like because that's such a complicated timeline. When you start watching the movies, and it's so hard to remember what takes place where.
Yeah, yeah. And there is a more recent YouTube channel called CZ's World, and he has done like a few horror movie timelines. So instead of putting the footage together in chronological order, it's like he'll be standing in front of the camera talking about it. You see the timeline at the bottom of the thing, and it'll show like screenshots and evidence of like, okay, this is why this takes place here. And there are a few dates that I disagree with him, but overall, it's pretty extensive and pretty neat to watch.
Yeah, I could go on about stuff like this all day, but that's not why we're here.
Right, right. We're here for Armor Wars.
Yeah, we're not talking Saw right now. We've done that in the past.
Right. So here in Armor Wars, you know, we have Rhodey, you know, Don Cheadle, and he's been through some really strange stuff, you know, and we had the revelation that for some of the time it was a scroll as Rhodey, and so now we have the real Rhodey back, and he's basically been trying to get caught up on everything that happened. And honestly, when he was trying to read up on all the stuff that people thought he did, it kind of felt like they were making it seem like he was a Marvel fan doing homework. Did you get that vibe?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, sort of, like, yes, but I found it in a more, like, comedic sense where I was thinking more of, like, how Captain America had his journal that he was trying to catch up on life for, like, the past 70 years. And then Rhodey had to also somewhat kind of do that, except instead of about the world, it was about, so what did I supposedly do? And everyone's throwing him all these stories. He's like, okay, yeah, that tracks. That's something I would do.
Yeah, there was that moment where he was like, "Wait, people thought that I seriously suggested killing a baby Thanos?" And yeah, that was a thing that I was shocked to see him suggest in Endgame. So to learn that that wasn't him, it was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense to me. Makes him a bit more likable, I guess.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. What did you think about how they never really told us when the swap happened? Like, we still don't know when. Like,
Yeah,
what were you expecting that to come up and like be like a big thing or?
yeah. So I don't know if they specified it in that other universe, but over here it's kind of ambiguous, and I kind of suspect that maybe they were gonna go more into it, but like in terms of when it happened, but it feels like maybe due to the negative reception of Secret Wars, they didn't, or Secret Invasion rather, that they didn't want to spend too much time on it and kind of just wanted us to like move on and get with the story type thing.
Yeah, it's something hard to overlook, though. You're like, when did this main character switch? You're making jokes, but you won't tell us when. And he's just like, I don't remember. Like, some of this seems familiar, but
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those plausible deniability things where he's like, "Oh, you don't like that I did this? It was the scroll who
yeah,
did
yeah,
it."
that's when the scroll did it. But I did this. But that happened after. No, 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 no.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably like some timeline video on YouTube where someone goes into it with possible hints and whatnot.
Here's
But
why Rhodey is still a scroll.
yeah, yeah, Rhodey actually made those controversial posts on social media, not the scrolls. But but yeah, so you also have like all this these years later, they're still dealing with Tony Stark's legacy. He's been dead for a while. His daughter Morgan is like a preteen at this point, and I was surprised that Gwyneth Paltrow, like, she came back as Pepper for this, for decent enough screen time, and you really get the sense that like they still miss Tony even after all these years, and they're like, man, it's so hard to manage all this company stuff and his technology and regulating it and all that.
Yeah, and I love seeing how Morgan like works with technology. Like you see Tony in her, but it's not like how you saw Tony in Peter. Like whenever Peter
Right.
was building his new suit, like you saw him doing the motions and stuff. But with Morgan, it's more of like the facial structure and how she thinks things through. And like obviously, she's a preteen; she's not trying to make weapons, but you see her making like these fun little gadgets around the house.
Yeah. And we also have Ironheart in the mix. She was in Wakanda Forever, got her own show, and now she's, still around and still trying to find her place in all this. So it's like you basically have a few different people sort of carrying out the Tony Stark legacy. Do you think that sort of clutters it, or do you think that they explore it enough in different ways here?
It feels cluttered at times whenever like you start to look around and you realize like they're not all using arc reactors, but they're all using very similar tech. So like it all kind of blends together and you get overwhelmed for a bit. But when you draw back and look at how they're all modeled to do different things, kind of, then it doesn't seem so cluttered. But I am looking forward to not such a heavy tech based future, hopefully, in the coming movies.
Yeah, they really do go all out with this one. I do like this new version of Riri Williams' Ironheart suit. She's come a long way since her first appearance, and I kind of like how she and Morgan almost have kind of like an older sister, younger sister relationship. Of course, they're very argumentative for a while. What'd you think of their relationship here?
Didn't like it at first, but towards the end of it, I was getting some strong Tony Peter vibes where like it
Okay.
was like that same type of mentor, like because Ironheart, she's been building all this tech for years now, and then Morgan, like she has the brains genetically and all that, and it's like, well, here's your mentor to help you understand it and lead you down your path.
Right. And we also get, Rhodey and Pepper have these talks where they're discussing like, all the different like maneuvering of like all these different people wanting like the Stark technology for like weaponry or for inventions and stuff like that. And they're basically like, I thought this was interesting how they had these moments where they would sit down and talk about, some of that, the more mundane work related stuff. I don't know, it just kind of added a realness to it.
I liked that because it brought it back to more of like the Iron Man 1 and 2 type of pacing for a little bit there, where it was let's get into the day to day process. We're not superheroes yet. I mean, they are now, but the way that they went about it kind of took you back. and it was nice to have those small moments.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that comes up is they receive a signal, and they believe that it's from the White Vision. Really ridiculous name there, but the version of Vision who is all white and sort of disappeared at the end of WandaVision. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, had did that surprise you, or like was that on your radar at all going into this?
No. So ever since WandaVision, the reappearance has been on my mind. The reappearance of White Vision has been on my mind. Like, probably a good 100% of the fandom. When are we going to see it again? And this was probably, I mean, yeah, I didn't really expect to see him pop up in Captain America either, but I wasn't expecting him to pop up here, or at least a reference or anything. So just like getting that little finally, like, let's throw out a little bit of bait and remind you that he's over here. Like, I was caught off guard. It was I took the bait. I nibbled.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rhodey feels like he should be the one, like he and his uh team of like military guys should go and check it out. But you also have Pepper saying that she should be involved because, Vision was part of Tony's legacy and she should be there for the decision making. And of course, you also have like Riri and Morgan sneaking onto this mission, like onto the aircraft or
I
whatever.
mean,
And it's
do you really call it sneaking whenever, as soon as Pepper says, I want to go too? It's not really sneaking if Morgan says, if you're going, I'm going.
right. Yeah, like she wanted Happy to babysit her, and so Happy has to go too because like he's basically like the babysitter, like on the road with them now. And which I thought was fun having Jon Favreau involved in this. He's been in a director capacity in Star Wars, but it's always fun to see him back in the actor capacity here, I
Oh,
guess.
and you can see it on his face. Like, yes, he's a good actor, but like, you can still see it on his face. He still loves being in front of the screen just as much as behind the camera.
Yeah. Like it feels like he still really knows how to play this character.
Don't you think Happy is just Jon Favreau in the MCU renamed? Like, that's just what he would be doing if he was in the MCU. Like, he's playing himself essentially.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely more so in this one because you see him cooking more. Jon Favreau is really into cooking. He's a chef himself, and so you see him making like all these meals because the Starks company has bought out Red Lobster, which I guess is kind of struggling in our world, but in the MCU, it got bought out by Stark Industries or Enterprise or whatever, and so now he is like kind of consulting in that division.
Wasn't expecting him to be like, hey, we got to make a pit stop. I want to get some of these biscuits.
Yeah, man, I love those biscuits.
They are good.
Yeah, I think those biscuits have even been sold by themselves as like, in a frozen section at some stores like Walmart or something. I don't know if that's still a thing, but I do remember my brother or someone getting those from Walmart or some store at some point.
I know I've seen them in the past. I just don't know how long it's been.
Right. But yeah, this does kind of feel like it goes back to the roots of the Iron Man movies. I mean, in the first one, you have Tony mentioning Burger King, like once he's finally back in the US. So there you go. But yeah, they track the signal to Nebraska City, which I don't even know if Nebraska City is a real city in our world, but I guess it's a city in the MCU at least.
Yeah, I thought that was like an acting error or something. Like, did they like mean to say something else? Did they mean to say the state? And then they're like, "Oh, Nebraska population." I don't remember what the number was. But like, oh no, okay, it's
Yeah, they show us the actual sign next to a road, which I honestly prefer over the like gigantic text that we got in Civil War whenever a city name came up.
Oh yeah, I was thinking of what was it during Infinity War? Every time it was like somewhere else, you just get this huge caption on the screen.
Yeah. So they find this facility in Nebraska City, and oh, I forgot to mention they also bring Bruce Banner along with them because he also worked on Vision, and yeah, so I guess uh they need that consultant there. But they find Vision and they look into his code and they're like, "Whoa, actually, I think that something may have happened years and years ago. I think Ultron may have uploaded a little bit of himself into Vision and then got into this white Vision thing." So what'd you think of that little tie-in there?
I I heard it and I was like, oh, so are we battling Ultron this movie? What's going on here? I love like the throwbacks and stuff. Like it was way over my head. Like at the time, it took some time to process, but in the moment, I was like, I please no. As like we've already got all these other characters on screen. Are we gonna get James Spader back in here to voice Ultron for a little bit? What's gonna happen?
Yeah, speaking of James Spader, I don't know if you ever watched The Office, but his character in season 8, I just can't stand his character and like the way that new CEO character is written that he plays. It's just, yeah, The Office season
I
8 is a
liked
low
him like
point.
half the time on The Office. I liked him like half the time because his character had so many different like personalities. It was some of them I liked, some of them I didn't.
Okay, yeah, to me, he kind of felt one note. Like in his first appearance, he tells, Jim and Toby and everyone that, like, they ask him about what he thinks about this thing related to work, and he's like trying to say this monologue that's supposed to sound smart. And he's like, everything revolves around this. But when you listen to the monologue, it's like, it's not really that impressive, and yet these characters think it sounds
Oh,
impressive, and I don't get it.
I never thought that he was supposed to come across as a smart person on that show. I thought he was just supposed to be like he was good at figuring out who he needed to like sweeten the deal with.
Yeah,
But I never once got the vibe that he was smart on that show.
yeah, okay. But yeah, I don't know. That season was a
Yeah,
low point for me, but yeah. Um, but we also get
but
enough.
yeah. Sorry, back to Nebraska.
Yeah, back to Nebraska City. We also get another return here. Once they figure this out, you hear the like cliche slow clapping. And walking out of the shadows is Justin Hammer, whom got was the villain in Iron Man 2, got imprisoned at the end of that, and now he's back. I guess he got out somehow, maybe during the snap or something.
What do you think about how he looked? Because like you'd expect a man going into prison and the way that he was talked about in the past, I wasn't expecting him to come out looking so buff and like fit and tight. Like, dude worked out to get ready for this movie.
Yeah, like he was all buff and whatnot, which was so different from how I'm used to seeing Sam Rockwell. But also in this moment, he was wearing golfing clothes, so it's like he's buff, but he's wearing golf clothes. So it's like really weird, but also really memorable.
I mean, it's definitely in character though to
Yeah.
be like I mean, at the same time, so I like to think that he was in prison, and I feel like he wasn't like he was smart. I mean, he was a leading defense contractor for the nation, a terrible one, but he was up there. And so I feel like he gets to prison and he just didn't have the brains that Tony would have had to get through. So he was just like working out the whole time.
Yeah.
So his montage instead, Tony's montage was him building an awesome suit in a cave with scraps, and Sam's was, I guess I'm going to beat some rocks for no reason with a hammer.
Yeah, just living up to that name. What'd you think of the music that they used for this montage for Justin Hammer?
Ugh. I know I've heard the song before. Like, I can't pinpoint it. Like, I don't know if it's one of those like weird TikTok sounds that like I just always hear all the time. But like, it was weird in the moment, but looking back on it, fitting for the character and stuff. Because like it's Justin Hammer trying to tell like his story, like how the hero always gets the "How did you survive? What did you do?" And it's like he's trying to tell that story, but everyone's like, "Yeah, we don't care. Why are you here?"
Yeah, think the song was the one that goes, "You've got me spinning right around, baby, right around, baby." And I guess it's supposed to illustrate how, like, I don't know, the madness, the inner workings in his mind of, dealing with losing and wanting to get revenge and stuff or something.
Yeah, because I know he talks about like hearing about Tony's death while he's in prison, and like that finally sparks his motivation to do something
Yeah, like,
because he wanted to be the one to bring him down.
yeah, like that was his dream, and now he's like, okay, now that that has happened and I didn't get to do it, I can't just keep sitting around. I need to take action. Um, and he like wants to hurt the people he knows that Tony loves, and because even though Tony is gone, he's like, I'm not gonna honor his death or whatever. He just wants to like destroy anything related to Tony, basically.
Yeah, he's given up on being like CEO of like defense. He's just like all out like I'm coming for Tony's life.
Yeah, and he's even teamed up with an Iron Man villain from the comics called Crimson Dynamo. He's this Russian guy, and I think in Iron Man 2, Whiplash kind of had elements of Crimson Dynamo, but here it's like the actual character with the actual name. Trying to refresh myself on what Crimson Dynamo's actual name is.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I'm like trying to think of any time that like Justin would talk to him, but like he never used his name because he's terrible with languages and he never
Okay,
gets past the language barrier. So like he never uses the guy's name, and I'm not familiar with the character.
Okay, yeah. Come to think of it, I don't know if they mention it in the movie itself, like out loud, but I remember seeing everyone talk about online how it's like Alexander Nevsky. So maybe that might be him, but either
Yeah,
way,
like I remember him looking at like the paperwork to be like, "Oh yeah, and this is Nev blah, blah, blah," and like just keep stumbling over it. And he's like, "This is this guy. Come on," in that classic like Justin Hammer esque fashion of being like, "Come on, it's this guy."
yeah, there were definitely people who chuckled in our theater at that point, but there were also other people who were like, that was really annoying. So, very par for the course for Marvel movie reception, I guess.
Do you remember the guy like two rows in front of us? He's like, "It's Nowitzki," or what? Like you could hear the guy in the audience is just like that knows what it's supposed to be, and he's mad because they don't get it right.
Yeah. I also remember like one of the people sitting in our row had like a stack of comics on his lap for some reason. Like he had like Iron Man comics and War Machine comics. And it's like, what's the point of you bringing these here? Like, there's no one here to sign them. You're not gonna be able to read in the dark. Are you just like showing off or what? It was
Right?
kind of weird.
Like I never saw a phone light or anything. So like I don't know if he was just like trying to use the light to like see if they captured any of like the comic covers or anything for like a split second on screen. But even
Yeah.
save that for the home release whenever you can like have your lights on and like be ready.
Yeah, maybe he was like one of those bloggers who is like, oh, 10 shots from Armor Wars that replicated scenes from the comics or something. I don't know.
Okay, to be fair, I love those videos.
All right, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, like you have Justin Hammer, Crimson Dynamo, and I guess White Vision has Ultron's programming within him, so it leads to this sort of all-out battle. And you have like these, some of the military guys who are with Rhodey are kind of just fodder here, I guess, to show like how dangerous everything is. When it's really the characters we know that we care about. But I don't know. What do you think of this sequence here, this action sequence?
I mean, so the action itself, I loved getting to see like everyone got like their quick little moment of like, yeah, I can do something, I'm useful. And then the end, you always have the one bad guy. Like, I loved getting to watch like the one guy walk in the room and be like, oh, I'm going to cause a scene. And then he's like, the door closes. He's like, no, 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 guys, I give up. Like, I just don't want to lose my job. There's no cameras here. Like, I'm going to lay down. I'm going to pretend to be knocked out. Like, I know I don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
Like a few people do that, a few different ways, and getting to see it in this movie, like, was probably the best version I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I agree. I also like how there was this was like a different moment, but you know how in previous Marvel movies there's a trend of former or like certain workers who are like very disenchanted with Tony Stark, whether they worked for him or whether his work affected their work negatively. And people have gotten sort of tired of that. But there was a moment with this oil worker person who is like, oh, yeah, Tony Stark, he was a pretty cool guy. Like, my job was pretty good because of him.
Yeah, yeah, it was great to see because Tony branched into the making a greener Earth after the events of Iron Man 1, and so being able to see someone from like the field that was like, well, my job isn't for a greener Earth necessarily, but being able to see how even with what Tony was doing, still helped the oil field in a sense.
Yeah, it was kind of
Like it's
tough.
hard to get the right words, but hopefully you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was tough for me to wrap my head around like what the oil worker was getting at, but I think overall it was just kind of funny that he had like no beef with Tony, even though like you'd kind of expect him to.
Well, I mean, you got that at first, and then he was like, "Oh, well, he made all these safety features, so we don't have to worry about this and that." And the real dangerous parts of the job became automated, at least. And it was like, "Oh, cool! So now you don't have to be the one up there doing that stuff."
Yeah. And so something that happens in this movie is like White Vision decides that he wants to use the browser Safari as his main mode of like power and infiltration and stuff. So I get the sense that this Ultron is kind of limited, which I don't know. Did they ever really explain that?
I it may have been something subtle to where I'm still waiting for the YouTuber to be like one of the 50 things you missed while watching type things. Like it may have been something like that, but from my gathering, I figured that was because Safari, if I'm not mistaken, that's the Apple browser, right?
Yeah, I believe so. It's on
And
my
then
iPhone, so maybe.
yeah, that's where I know it from. So I mean, I'm sure it's available elsewhere, but I'm pretty sure that's the preloaded, known as the Apple browser. And the only thing I can think of is Apple has that clause to where like the villains can't use iPhones or whatever. So maybe this was their way of being like, we're going to guarantee White Vision's a good guy because there's been speculation on what he's been doing since WandaVision. Like, that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, because there is that revelation later on that like White Vision has not been turned evil by his Ultron programming. Although the Ultron part of him is something he did have to grapple with, and we even at some point get Bruce Banner sort of like hacking into him and doing like this it kind of reminds me of those old video games where there'd be like a side quest where you have to go into a computer and do this little puzzle thing. So I thought it was kind of nice that we got to see a bit more of the brainy skills of Bruce Banner in this. Like it was cool seeing him Hulk out now and then, but we're reminded that yeah, he's also a scientist, you know.
Those were probably some of my favorite scenes from the first Avengers, where whenever it was just Tony and Bruce going back and forth, also. And even then, I mean, we got more Tony being scientific and Bruce just reacting, but it was nice to see kind of the shoe on the other foot almost, with Bruce being the science guy.
Yeah, and I also like that, you know, even Happy got his moment where one of the, you know, there's an Iron Man suit that gets on him accidentally, but once he like breaks into it and like gets used to it, he's like, "It's happy hour," which I
I
kind of loved.
I wasn't expecting to hear that, and it was just like one of those moments in the movie where it's like, okay, yeah, that Happy would say something like that. Okay, I love this now. I just wasn't expecting to see Happy. I think what took me off more wasn't the what he said. It was seeing John Favreau with from like that HUD, the reverse HUD, I guess you could call it. You know, like the Iron Man cam, I guess.
Yeah,
From inside, that like seeing John Favreau from that was pretty awesome.
yeah. And one of the listeners of the show, Enrico, he said to me, "It's happy hour," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Oh, it'll make sense." And then once it got to this part, I was like, "Oh, that's what he meant." Okay, so
And then in true Happy fashion, he takes like 3 steps and he trips over a dolly in the warehouse.
yeah,
It just falls on his face. It's like, you all right there, Happy?
yeah. And I like that Pepper also gets to use her suit. You know, in the comics at some point she becomes like the name that she ends up using is Rescue. And we got like a little hint of that in Iron Man 3 when I think when Tony like threw the suit onto her. But it was cool to see her like in the suit and in control. Like she's obviously been practicing more and whatnot.
I forgot about the Iron Man 3 thing with him like doing the hand motions to move the suit onto her. I was thinking about, what was it, Endgame?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of because she was in the blue suit that time.
Oh, right, yeah. And you know, Rhodey's War Machine suit has gotten a bunch of upgrades since the last time we saw him wearing it. What'd you think of the upgrades on his suit?
I loved the callbacks to, I guess, yeah, that was Iron Man 2, whenever Justin Hammer was the villain. I loved all the callbacks because at first, whenever he got all those upgrades in 2, they were all like external almost, it seemed like. And then in this one, it was more streamlined. So like it looked like War Machine, except it was almost nanotech-ish, if not nanotech.
Yeah, it's like not as bulky as you would expect.
Yeah, and like he showed off like all the weapons. It seemed like if I may have the order wrong, but it seemed like anytime he used a new weapon, it was like in the same style of weapon and same order that Justin Hammer gave to him in 2. Whenever he was like, "I'll take it all,"
Yeah.
to like get a suit outfitted. So like I loved that being able to be like, "Oh, here's this." He's like, "Yeah, here's the upgrade of that. Guess what? Still works."
Yeah. And I also like how the partnership between Justin Hammer and Crimson Dynamo feels a bit different. Like I feel like Justin Hammer has kind of learned since the whole Whiplash thing, you know, how sometimes he would sort of argue with or berate Whiplash, but here he's like trying to seem more respectful to Crimson Dynamo even if it is an act.
Which I find funny because he's so much bigger than Crimson in this movie because he spent so much time in prison buffing up, and it's like you don't have to do that now. You're the bad guy. You can use your brute force. You've been practicing for this.
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
now it's like the big buff guy that like cowers in the corner almost.
yeah, like going into this movie, like I'd heard rumblings that Justin Hammer could be in this, but then, you know, knowing that like Crimson Dynamo was in it, I was like, okay, he's gonna be the bigger one. So like I was not expecting um Justin to be the bigger one, and And he didn't even need like any Hulk or Super Soldier serum or anything. It's just like all him, which I guess was a nice little change of pace.
I feel like we're gonna find out. I don't know, in like the next 3 or 4 Marvel projects, whenever they decide to re-enter this circle of story again, I feel like we're gonna learn something about Hammer and like something else that he secretly did to bring him back again in the future, probably. Because I don't know. I just get the vibe that he's not gone, and there's something they weren't talking about. I think he did some experimenting.
Yeah, maybe. And as for the the I guess you could say the sort of family dynamic kind of feels very Guardians of the Galaxy. The way that Riri and Morgan would like argue with each other, and Morgan would be like, "You stay out of this. This is a family matter," and like the music would get intense and whatnot during these dramatic moments. Like it felt like they were really trying to mine what makes the Guardians of the Galaxy movies really good to make this whole team up uh, feel like it's more compelling.
Yeah. So in that three-way conversation, I was definitely getting like vibes of like Star Lord, Rocket, and Gamora. I don't know about you, but that's what I was feeling.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like,
definitely got that.
like I felt like Pepper was like the Gamora of the situation, trying to wrangle in Morgan and Ironheart, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, what'd you think of the thing that Morgan found that allowed her to basically defeat Crimson Dynamo?
I was so confused. I was like, and I like the usage of the word defeat there also because she finds the teacup of all things,
Yeah,
and I don't know how it got there in this rubble unharmed and all that. She just pulls it out, and he starts talking about this time that he met another super soldier just over a cup of tea. And then I don't know if it's supposed to tie into the oh, what's his name from the Thunderbolts, the other super soldier that said he met Captain America in the past. I was getting vibes that that was the connection there. I don't know.
okay. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it was interesting how like the teacup was actually full of some sort of experimental liquid that I guess Hammer was gonna try to use on War Machine or something, but then Morgan like figures out what it is and is able to use it on Crimson Dynamo's suit, and it basically like malfunctions and just breaks apart. Are you still there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. Sorry,
Okay.
I was drinking my water.
Oh,
I'm trying to get back.
yeah, that mention of tea really got you thirsty, huh?
It did.
uh, but yeah, like he's defeated, um, and Justin Hammer, his plan falls apart because as is expected, by the end of this whole thing, the whole hero team comes together, and all six of them, or whatever, five or six, I've lost count at this point, but they do really feel like one unit and come together and just are able to like beat down Hammer and his forces and whatnot.
Yeah, did you start to get like some Young Avenger vibes there towards the end?
Yeah, it's this thing that they keep hinting at or like nodding toward, because you have this moment where Riri and Morgan team up and are able to take down some people, because Morgan is able to like lure them, like pretending to run away, and then Riri is able to take them down with her suit and the weapons that her suit has. Um, but I do wonder if, we'll see Morgan also step into a suit, maybe in a future team up movie or something, because she is still kind of young here. Whereas, Peter was like, what, 14, 15 when he started, at least in the MCU, when he started being Spider-Man. So
Yeah, he was somewhere around that age. So Morgan's probably by like the next major movie is probably old enough.
yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting because it really does feel like they're trying to, uh, foreshadow things with some of these younger characters. I mean, obviously, like Ms. Marvel and Kate Bishop are already in the hero game and whatnot, but yeah, maybe the next team up movie is when we'll see like all of that particular thread fully come together. But I guess we'll see.
It will be interesting to see if she does go down that path. It'll be interesting to see what type of suit she makes. Like, is it going to be an Iron Man suit essentially, or is it going to be something new?
Yeah, like what's the color scheme gonna be? I'm very curious, like what
Yeah.
it
Well,
could
because
end up
like
being.
normally I would think, oh yeah, it's going to be like Iron Man, but she's had so many other influences since his death.
Yeah,
So it'll be fun to see. Like, I don't know. I'm hoping. I don't know. I hope she adopts the red and gold, but without like having like an and like an Iron moniker to her name.
yeah, like it's got to be something different because we already have Iron Heart, and there's even an argument there where she was like, "Why do you get to use the Iron name or whatever?" But over the course of the movie, you get the sense that maybe she would want a name of her own that honors her dad, but is not like too similar to her dad's moniker and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing she wants to have in relation is, I mean, obviously she loves him, but she wants to be her own hero in a sense. So I feel like it's not going to be like Iron Woman or anything like that. But so the only part that she'll keep is the MAN, but she'll put a WO in front of it.
Yeah. Also, what'd you think of how Vision reacted when he asked what's happened to Wanda, and he hears that Wanda is basically dead. Like, what'd you think of his reaction there?
I was expecting more. Like I expected almost like a mental breakdown instead of, which I guess every form of a mental breakdown is different, so maybe it was. But I was expecting like a vocal like backlash and like like anger and just like the subtle like sitting there and processing. I was not expecting. I thought it was great though.
Yeah, I do wonder if maybe this is something that he'll be sitting with for a little while, and maybe gradually we'll see it sort of build up a bit more in him.
Do you
Because
think we'll get like a series called like Vision Wanda or something? And so instead of her manipulating the real world, it'll be Vision manipulating like a digital world
oh yeah, like he'll create
to bring Wanda back.
a virtual world with a virtual Wanda. Yeah, maybe. um, but yeah, I like the way that they wrap things up. Hammer and Dynamo are defeated, but if they really wanted to, they could bring them back somehow. Um, and like I don't know, what'd you think of of the the like final talk that this team had before the credits?
Same as almost every other movie, dragged on 7 minutes longer than it needed to. You could have cut out half of it and gotten the point across. I get it. Everyone's emotional. We're happy. But come on, I got to go to the bathroom, say your goodbyes, roll credits, hurry.
Yeah, it did kind of feel like Fast and Furious, the amount of times they said family in this scene. But yeah, so you mentioned um if wanting to you mentioned like the credits. So what'd you think of the credit scenes that we got?
Well, I wasn't there for one of them. I couldn't hold my bladder, so you'll have
Yeah,
to
yeah, I
put
remember.
me in again. But yeah, so the first one, it was interesting because like I haven't paid much attention to the MCU recently. So I don't know. Like, was that a different view of Wakanda? I still don't know what's going on there. But it was weird to kind of see what looked like the Bifrost like going into like a jungle. I don't know what we're gonna get from that.
Yeah, I think that might be like one of the alternate universes that could come into play, or it could be very well be like the Wakanda we're familiar with, and there's some sort of interaction with, the space stuff and Bifrost. So I don't know. It was kind of confusing. It felt like it was maybe it was there to remind us, oh, you saw this tech based stuff. Well, remember, there's also magic related stuff in this universe. So yeah, it did feel kind of out of place, and honestly could have been saved for whatever next project it's relevant for. Um, but the other credit scene, the one at the end, it was more of a comedic one. Like you kind of just have happy cooking and like it was basically just a happy cooking hour type thing, and he's like talking to himself as if like he's an announcer on some sort of popular cooking show. So it was basically just Jon Favreau having fun, and then you have like Don Cheadle, Rhodey, walking in, acting like being like, "What are you doing?" And then Happy's like, cooking," and then he tries like one of the sandwiches I cooked, and he's like, "You are amazing."
Oh, I wish I would have seen that one instead. Like, I prefer the comedic scenes instead of the drama for the post credits.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe Rhodey and Happy have struck a new friendship now that he recognizes Happy's talents.
I can see it.
Yeah. But I guess we could go into final thoughts. So what are your final thoughts, score out of 10, and do you know of measurement for that score for Armor Wars?
Oh goodness. Um, so it's the first MCU movie that I've seen in a while in theaters, and I really enjoyed it, and I was glad this was one of them I got to see there. I'll probably give it. Oh, it's sitting at about an. Oh, I didn't think about the unit of measurement. Um, it's probably sitting at about 8.5 arc reactors out of 10.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm with you there. I'd give it 8.5 out of 10 Red Lobster biscuits. Um, I didn't really have high expectations for this one, even though I was looking forward to seeing more of Rhodey and the others. But this one blew me away the way that they were able to balance some things, and it didn't feel too nostalgia based. Um, and like it felt somewhat grounded, like it was a nice diversion from some of the other stuff we've seen in Marvel, kind of different from some of the other stuff, but still within that universe. So, and tying up some threads. So, yeah, I really enjoyed myself watching this. So, yeah. All right. So, I guess with that, thanks for joining me again, Jesse. Did you want to do another Cinemaybes plug before we go?
Yeah, I'll make this one short and sweet. Sorry if it sounds rude, listeners. Get on, get on Spotify, look up Cinemaybes, check it out. Hopefully, you like it.
All right, awesome. And people can check the links in the show notes, and other stuff I'll add to the end in the edit as usual. But without further delay, have a good day. All right, so you can email this podcast via delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on your favorite type of armor. I don't know. You can also find me pretty much on the socials listed in the show notes, and on a podcast/vlog I do with my dad called Yes Shift. We recently interviewed Chris Clark, keyboardist for John Anderson and the Band Geeks, and we got more stuff coming up, so lots of fun there. And also on Drum Talk TV Brilliance, so look up all that stuff. Again, check the show notes, and stevenshinder.com for my standalones and stepping stones novels. And yeah, so my other self will talk about other things he's been watching. So without further delay, here he is. Hey everyone. So, in terms of newer things I've been watching, been catching up on Gross Point Garden Society. There's only a couple episodes left in the season. We got a certain reveal, and yeah, I'm really curious to see how things will play out in the last two episodes, basically. And oh, I also watched the second season of Russian Doll, and it was still pretty good, but I think I prefer the first season. And if the show doesn't continue, I think it's fine as is. I get that things are busy with Poker Face and whatnot, and that's a pretty good show. I think that's coming back soon. I also finished that season of Running Point, and there was a Frasier joke that really took me off guard. But was yeah. So I've also been watching Doctor Who, and posting reviews of those on my YouTube channel, Steven Shinder Reviews in video form. So 4 episodes in, I feel like I'm enjoying each episode less than the previous ones, and I go into like, I guess you can watch those videos on the channel and see exactly why. I've also, of course, been watching Star Wars Andor. They've been releasing 3 episodes per week, each one taking place in a different year leading up to Rogue One. So 6 episodes in, that's halfway through the season. The first week, the third episode had a heavy subject matter, and I thought it was handled pretty well, although I know people are questioning the inclusion of it, but I feel like it really is trying to say how this is a thing that happens with people in power in real life, and if you watch the show, you'll know what I mean. But yeah, also watched the more recent episodes this week, and while they were mostly good, there is a recast that I don't really mind because we need to get used to Star Wars characters being recast. But there was something that happened in episode 6 where something made me really happy, and then something made me really upset that it happened within the same episode. There's, yeah, like, I don't know how to say it without spoiling it, but it looked like it was going in a more enlightened direction, and then the rug kind of got pulled out from under it. So I don't know. Yeah, watch the episode and you'll know what I mean. I also went to the 20th anniversary re-release of Revenge of the Sith, and I don't know if it's just because of some of the stuff I've been dealing with and seeing how Star Wars fans are today, but I didn't feel quite as emotional watching the re-release as I did watching the movie, 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago, I cried during Order 66 and Anakin and Obi-Wan's arguing on Mustafar. But I guess I was just super aware of some of the flaws in the movie this time around. Like even though I've read the novelization, I even reread it not too long ago, like back in January, I think it was. Maybe February, probably January, but even having read the novelization, I don't recall that explaining why Anakin doesn't think Palpatine is a Sith or a suspect when he tells him the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. So there are little things here and there, but I was also still appreciating how, like stuff on Utapau really leans into the pulpy sci-fi adventure feel that influenced George Lucas, these other stories that influenced him. But yeah, I would say it's still maybe in my top 5 Star Wars movies, but like, I don't know, a couple years ago, I think I gave it a 9 out of 10, and now I'm bumping that down to maybe an 8 or 8.5, somewhere around that range, maybe between. So I don't know, but I still like the movie. It was just kind of a strange experience. But yeah, I went with a friend and he really enjoyed it. And so I was really glad that we had a great time hanging out and whatnot. We're also seeing the 50th anniversary re-release of Monty Python and the Holy Grail on May the 4th of all dates. So yeah, that's kind of funny, I guess. In terms of movies, I finally got around to seeing Companion, and I liked it, but I kind of feel like there was a missed opportunity. It looked like it was gonna explore the relationship between a couple gay characters some more than it did, and would have been interesting to delve into those characters a bit more. I've also seen a new movie on Max called Adult Best Friends, and I thought it was interesting. Kind of touches on, different adults want different things. Some want kids and some don't want kids, and that's fine. It kind of felt kind of short, honestly. Maybe it could have been a bit longer. I also watched Sinners. I saw that one in the theater. The first half was kind of a slow burn. Definitely had some setup stuff, and then the second half is where the horror really ramps up and is more like what I was expecting, pacing wise, from the movie. So I liked it. I do wonder if it'll grow on me a bit more on a second watch, now knowing what the pacing is like. But yeah, there's some really cool and interesting stuff in that movie. And yeah, some things to read into that are very thought provoking. So yeah, I think that's it from me. I'm sure I'll have watched more things to talk about on the next episode, the 5th anniversary episode. So we'll see what happens then in 2 weeks. So yeah, I'll be back in 2 weeks, and so will the show. So without further delay, have a good day.